Hello everyone. Today we'll start the last chapter of the book Indian Society, that is Challenges of Cultural Diversity. Now culture for this to understand this chapter, the chapter's name is Challenges of Cultural Diversity. So let's understand first the meaning of cultural diversity. So cultural diversity. You must have heard this time and again many times. Diversity means basically inequalities or differences. Okay, so in our society, Indian society, we have a lot of differences amongst individuals. We have a lot of inequalities because of their unequal access to social resources. And when we talk about Indian society, India as a nation, there is a lot of cultural diversity in India. We mean there are many different types of social groups and communities living in our country. These are communities defined by cultural markers. Cultural markers means language, religion, means we the people of India belong to different languages, so many of us profess Hinduism, so many are practicing Christianity, so there are different languages, religion, different sects in our country. So these are all called cultural markers, and every community has different cultural markers. And when these diverse communities become a part of a nation like us, then difficulties are created. Of course, when so many people are staying together with so much of diversity, so much of inequality, so much of differences in their every background, social, emotional, then there is bound to be competition, conflict between them. Cultural diversity presents tough challenges. Tough challenge means very difficult. It's very difficult for the leaders of our country or the ones who are running our nation. The diversity which is there in our country amongst the people of the society presents or offers a lot of challenges and obstacles. The difficulties arise from the fact that cultural identities are very powerful in our country. They arouse intense passions and are often able to mobilize large number of people. Mobilize large number of people means people get very emotional, they react very violently when their community comes into question. Like example, you are said anything about your caste or about your family, you will behave in a very, you will react instantly and very violently sometimes, because we all are very emotionally attached to our identities, cultural identities especially. And this creates competition, conflicts in our society. Measures to address these inequalities or injustices suffered by one community can provoke opposition from the other community. This means, like, suppose I am ruling a particular area and there are people living with different communities, people of different communities staying there. So if I favor one community, the other community people, they might oppose it, because they might feel that the injustice is happening to them, so they might oppose it. The situation becomes worse when resources are scarce. Resource means anything which is useful to us. So imagine 100 people in a class and there are only 10 chocolates. So chocolate is a resource, and 100 children in the class and 10 chocolates. So chocolate is resource. So of course there'll be fights, there can be quarrels, conflicts for those limited chocolates in the class. So same way in our society we have very scarce resources and a very large population. So that worsens the situation and conflicts become more frequent. Now, community identity. A group of people who are together due to infrastructure, resources, facilities. Most of the time, community identity is ascribed status. Ascribed means if you have an identity of your own because of your community, you are born into a community, you don't choose your community. So that is ascribed status, not an achieved status. It is determined by the accident of birth. At the time you are born, your social hierarchy your community is decided. It is not achieved. It is individualistic and ascribed. Community identity is universal as it is present everywhere, in every country, every religion. So people in the entire world have their identity. They all belong to some particular community, some race. So they all have identities. When two countries or groups are in a conflict with each other, very rarely does one country or group accept the way accept that they were wrong, even though they are. Some notion of mutually agreed upon truth is very hard to establish in a situation of identity conflict. This means when two individuals, they are in conflict with each other, or they are not agreeing upon anything. So one community member, it is very rare, it is not a usual thing to see that one community person will forgive the other community person, or they both, the different community person, come upon a common conclusion or a common solution they find out. This is very, very rare. Importance of community identity. Now this must have come in your mind that why are we talking about community identity? The answer is very simple, because community identity is very, very important to all of us. It is very important for the obvious reasons, because the community identity, or the identity which all of us have, provides us a sense of belonging, gives us a sense of belonging. It provides us the language, our mother tongue we get from our community. It provides us cultural values through which we comprehend the world, or we understand the world. It anchors our self-identity, or it gives us our self-identity. Overlapping circles of community types give meaning to our world. So our community makes our life more meaningful, more loved, and more understanding. It gives us a sense of security also. I will feel secure, safe if I know where I belong. Imagine a person, or imagine we don't know which caste do we belong to, which family do we come from, which clan, which region. We would feel so lost in this world. So it gives us a sense of security, comfort, sense of belonging. So that is why community identity is considered very, very important. It provides us overall satisfaction. We feel satisfied in belonging to a community. That's the main reason why people act very emotionally and very violently also when there is a perceived threat to their community. When they feel that there's a danger to their identity, they react very emotionally, and they would go to any extent or do anything to save their community identity. Policies to accommodate cultural diversity. Now there are two policies which are there to accommodate, or you can say to tackle the cultural diversity in our country. One is policy of assimilation, and the second is policy of integration. So pay attention here, because these policies many students don't understand. Now policy of assimilation. Policy of assimilation, where everybody decides to follow one norm, one belief, one culture and common value. The whole country follows the majority as they are more powerful. This is for convenience sake and unity of the country. Example, in India, Hindus are majority, and therefore so many festivals are compared to the festivals of the Christians and Parsis. So policy of assimilation, let me explain you again. Policy of assimilation is getting absorbed. So if a policy of assimilation is when everybody is supposed to or is expected to follow one common norm, common way of living, one common belief, one culture, and it's mainly the culture of the majority of the area. The next is policy of integration. All people follow their national culture and not the culture of the dominant one, like the policy of assimilation. In the policy of assimilation, everyone is expected to follow the common norm, common value, common beliefs, everything, but that is usually of the dominant community. But in policy of integration, we follow the national culture or the pattern in public life and keep our all personal community related things in our private life. Like Janagana Mana is a national anthem, but Vande Mataram would be non-national because community identities can act as basis for nation formation. So that is why this discourages to bring community identity into public, but to practice it only in the private domain. This does not mean we need to suppress the identity of minorities. That can lead to revolts. There will be no unity. By suppressing the non-national culture of minority or smaller section, it can lead to problems, and instead of unity, the country will divide. Thus, the government allows people to maintain cultural differences in order to have peace and harmony in the country. Means in a country like India with so much of diversity, so much of inequality, so many variations in our country, and so the government of India cannot at any cost afford to suppress or to exploit any section of society in order to maintain unity, because India would always want that our country be harmonious, be peaceful. So for that we have to satisfy every community people. So that is why policy of integration is followed, where people are supposed to follow the national culture and to practice the community related lifestyle in their private domain. So two policies, please remember: policy of assimilation, policy of integration. Next is nation. A nation is a sort of a large scale community, or it's a community of communities. So India is a nation. So India is a community. You can say it's a community of many communities. Or members of a nation share the desire to be a part of the same political collectivity. This desire for political unity usually expresses itself as the aspiration to form a state. These are all definitions, probable definitions of nation. A nation is a peculiar means strange sort of community that is easy to describe but hard to define. This sentence, please remember, many questions are formed on this. A nation is a strange or a different type of community that is easy to describe. We can describe that state is a community of many communities, or it's a country, but it is easy to describe it, but we cannot give a specific definition for nation. So that's why we are saying it's easy to describe but hard to define. Many nations are founded on the basis of common cultural, historical and political institution. So many nations or many countries of the world, they have common culture, common history, and that's how they were formed. There are many nations that do not share single common language, region, ethnicity, but there are some other nations also which do not share anything, but still they have been formed. So that is why again we are saying it's easy to describe but hard to define a nation. Sorry, excuse me. Now a state means a government, so it's an abstract thing. You can't see a state. In the most general sense, the term state refers to an abstract means you can't touch it, you can't feel it. It's an abstract entity consisting of a set of political legal institutions claiming control over political geographical territory and the people living in it. So the state of India right now is the government. So the government has control over us. It has control over our geographical territory, that is the entire territory of India, and the people, we, the residents living in it. In Max Weber, a thinker, in Max Weber's well-known definition, state is described as as follows. According to Max Weber, it is a body that successfully claims a monopoly of legitimate force in a particular territory. Monopoly means only that body has one single legal force in a particular territory. That is state. Nation, multiple states. In today's world, we believe in one nation, one state. Like India is there, one nation, we have one political government. So we believe in that in today's times, in contemporary times. But USSR, if you take the, it was a nation but state, but had many countries which had their own culture. There's different nations. Since the government encountered and the people were not able to voice their, but this broke up in 1991. Dual citizenship also we have seen in the present times. Dual citizenship of Israelis in US, so they are Israeli also and they are Americans also. Indian nation state. The Indian nation state is culturally, socially one of the most diverse countries of the world. So India, if you look at India, we see that India is really one of the most countries with the maximum diversity. There's a population which is population of India which speaks 1632 different languages are spoken in India. Many dialects are there. In terms of religion, we have 80% who are Hindus, then we have Muslims, Christians, Parsis, Jains, Buddhists of different proportion in our country. So lot of diversity in religion, lot of diversity in language. India's case, so in nation of India, it does not fit in the assimilationist model also, nor the integration. So policy of assimilation and integration, remember? So policy of assimilation was when the dominant culture is to be followed by everyone, when everyone's supposed to follow the dominant culture's beliefs, norms, everything. And integration is when you're supposed to practice your, so India will not fit in policy of assimilation also, not integration model also. See, you think for a while. In India, we can follow our religion openly. Also, we don't have to do it within our house only. So, policy of integration is not followed here. But policy of assimilation, it's Hindus are majority in India, but we are not following everything of the Hindus. So that is why we are saying it neither fits in the assimilationist nor the integrationist model. The Constitution of India declares the state to be a secular state, but religion, language, and other factors not banished from the public sphere. So they have not vanished away. In fact, these communities have been explicitly recognized by the state. So in the Indian Constitution recognizes every diversity, every inequality. On the whole, India can be considered a good example of a state nation, though it is not entirely free from the problems common to a nation state. So, we'll continue the rest of the part of the chapter in the next class. Hope you understood. Okay. Have a nice weekend. Thank you.